Welcome to this year's Student Body President and VP video debates. I'm John Michael Kinsella.
And I'm Michael Stefano.
And we are the chairs of the Elections Commission that oversees the student government elections.
Today, we will be asking the candidates to introduce themselves with an opening statement. Then, we will be asking them 3 questions that we have prepared. Then, the presidential tickets will be answering a 4th question that was written by the opposing candidates. Finally, the tickets will be concluding with a closing statement.
So without further ado, let's have our candidates introduce themselves and open with their opening statements.
Thank you.
Hi Villanova, my name is Caroline Levine and I'm running for Student Body President.
And my name is Ivanica Skalko and I'm running for Student Body Vice President.
I'm a junior political science major from Hopewell Township, New Jersey.
And I am a junior communications major from Los Angeles, California. Over the past year, we've had the privilege of being able to serve in student government, me as the Chief of Staff and Caroline as Student Body Vice President.
We found meaning and purpose in this work, especially helping to lead the university through a very challenging year. From attending Board of Trustees meetings to working very closely with the Community First Committee, we've worked every day to put students and their concerns at the center of our work. We're incredibly proud of how the student body has come together to make the past 2 semesters possible.
We're more than just our experience. We're 2 people who take initiative when they see a way to improve our community and university.
We both love the Villanova community, and we both think that loving this community means wanting it to be even better. We think that student government has the opportunity to improve the student experience in the very important areas of social justice and inclusion, mental health advocacy, and transparency from the university, and we also are confident that we're the leaders who can make this happen.
Hi everyone, my name's Julia Lamarre. I'm a sophomore nursing major from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and I will be running for Student Body President.
Hi guys, I'm Choi. I'm a sophomore political science major from Columbia, Maryland, and I'm running for your Student Body Vice President.
This has undoubtedly been a difficult time for all of us, not only as individuals, but as a community. We have had to adjust to constantly changing times, and it has definitely taken a toll on all of us, but we really hope that throughout this video, you'll be able to learn more about us and about what we're passionate about, and yeah.
And as involved members of the Villanova community, we really feel like we can hear and heed to every single voice of every single student on this campus. And as sophomores, we've really seen what a unified Villanova community can do pre-COVID and during COVID. And no matter what next fall throws at us, we want to be able to prove that no matter what challenge is thrown at our community, we can do it together.
Thank you.
The first question is, what is an important issue that you recognize on campus, and how will you address it to form a more welcoming and inclusive campus community?
Mental health is something very close to both Phil and me, and now more than ever, our mental health has really been put in some jeopardizing situations. We are surrounded by so many well-rounded and driven students that we often feel a sort of pressure to excel at everything we do and to be involved in as much as we can, when in reality, we all have something that we're struggling with. One of our main hopes is that all students are willing to have these often difficult conversations, to realize that they're not alone, because at one point or another, we've all faced something that has taken a toll on us. And as a community, if we host these conversations, people will know that they're not alone.
And I think Julia and I can really speak for mental health because we both have had super personal experiences with mental health. And like, for example, I've utilized some of the great resources that this campus already offers, such as the counseling center. And although it's been great during the school year, the reality is the logistical challenges of operating the counseling center during breaks when we don't have school just simply do not allow for access to therapy and counseling in general. So we want to work as a ticket to offer more resources during breaks, not just during the school year, as we know that anxiety and mental illness does not take a break during school breaks.
While highlighting the current resources we have on campus is extremely important, we also have the idea of creating a mental health hotline that is entirely student-run. Sometimes students don't want to be going into a counseling center and talking with an adult. They just need a friend to talk to or somebody to rant to. By setting up this hotline, students could either text or call with another student completely anonymously and confidentially. We've looked into like different voice editing things so you wouldn't even have to know who's who. But if we did this, we could end the stigma around mental health and really come together as a united community.
We both see the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion as the most important issue facing the Villanova community. The murder of George Floyd this past summer and the stories that were shared on the Black Villanova Instagram brought to light a reality that many of our fellow students have been living and experiencing for their whole time at Villanova, that Villanova is not always a place that everyone feels comfortable calling home. Eva and I want to make this different, and we have two different ways that we see moving this work forward. First, on an institutional level, we know that there are policies and practices that can be changed in order to make this a place that everyone feels included. We both will be sitting as members of the Equitas Presidential Task Force on Race, and we're excited to work with this group to advance some of the university's objectives, including having a more diverse faculty and staff, and re-looking at different policies throughout the student experience to make sure all students are feeling included and valued. We also know that inclusion goes far beyond diversity and just things that the university is doing at an institutional level. And we know that many of the experiences that leave students feeling not a part of our community come from relations between students. We think student government can be a leader on this front by bringing all students into the work of social justice and making sure that all students understand their responsibility of creating community.
In addition to diversity, equity, and inclusion, we find mental health awareness and advocacy to be another important issue on Villanova's campus. We want to use our connections with administrators and groups on campus to add more counselors of color to the health center, expanding the limit on counseling sessions offered in the health center, and improving long-term off-campus counseling options. We also want to look at peer institutions for research and ways that we can also improve our counseling experience at Villanova.
Question 2. In a time where Villanova has strict restrictions, we still see plenty of situations where students do not follow COVID protocol. How do you plan to inspire the student body to follow the regulations laid out by the university?
First and foremost, Eva and I strongly believe in the value of leadership, of leading by example. And we know that we cannot ask students to do something that we are not fully committed to doing ourselves. This means being leaders on our campus and setting the example by always following the Community First guidelines and making sure we're putting community first in everything that we do. Since last July, when the Community First Committee was started, Eva and I have met almost weekly with administrators to give feedback on how the student experience was being shaped by COVID-19 and to make sure that all residents and off-campus students at Villanova still felt included and part of our community, even with all the changes and sacrifices that students have been asked to make. For us, this also means encouraging students to come and also showing up ourselves at Community First events and all of the programming that the universities work hard to put together to make this feel a little bit more like a normal year.
We realize and recognize that regulations are difficult but important to keep our campus community safe, and we want to use our connections with administrators, groups on campus, and students to put forward community first values and increase transparency and communication with COVID-19.
I think each and every one of us wants to see somewhat normalcy next fall, but in reality, that's just not the situation we might be in. So we're going to have to, as a campus, adjust accordingly to whatever happens with the overall COVID-19 pandemic. And obviously, Community First has done a great job in organizing socially distant events that also allow for socialization to help that kind of loneliness that comes with the pandemic. And like Julia and I have been talking, we're pretty disappointed with the breaking of COVID protocols, although we understand that people want to socialize. So we really want to build on those ideas that Community First has already offered, and we feel like we have a lot of exciting new plans for that.
It's definitely difficult because when you are so into activities and you have no breaks in between, naturally you want to escape, and by doing that you typically want to be hanging out with your friends. So we want to no longer make it a threatening punishment, but rather make people want to follow the guidelines, not just for other Villanovans, but for the country as a whole to see better change. As Phil said, we've been talking about some ideas, and one thought we had was to host some yoga, Zumba, Pilates classes down at the football field. Everybody would be able to get outside while working out, clearing their minds mentally, and we could also put some iced coffee stations around the football field to encourage hanging out and socializing after while being socially distant as well.
For the third question, how would you define a successful year in office?
To us, a successful year in office is truly reaching every individual and organization on campus. We currently feel that the Student Government Association does not represent a broad enough group of students, and we feel that there's much more to be added. So we would want to encourage participation to achieve the maximum goals that we can achieve. We also want to really stress that while we're very passionate about diversity, we do not ever want to act as if we understand people's positions, and we think that our ability to listen is one of our strongest assets, because we would listen and really understand what they need to feel better on campus.
And just adding on to what Julia just said, like diversity, equity, and inclusion are words that we've heard a lot over the past year, but we strongly believe that actions speak louder than words. And just as Julia said as well, we cannot speak for the experiences of every student on this campus, but we want to create a culture where, frankly, acts of hate and words of exclusion are not tolerated at all. And so we're definitely going to try to open lines of communication between us and different student organizations where people can actually directly affect their experiences on campus. And I think our overarching goal is to make every Villanova feel unique, but at the same time as one on this campus.
Additionally, we want every student to feel safe on campus. As I'm sure every other student was, the recent news of the sexual assault cases took a very hard mental toll on everybody. And the truth is, we can't keep brushing aside these cases, and we can't look at them as statistics, because everybody deserves to feel safe on campus. So Phil and I would want to work directly with Title IX to ensure that every student knows their resources, know how to go about certain things, because while there are great measures in place, I'm not sure whether everybody knows about them. So a successful year is to really hold ourselves accountable for what we tell the student body and listen to everyone's voices.
So a year ago, almost at the date, I was sitting on this exact stage, running for office, running to lead the university, and we had at that point really little to no idea what COVID-19 was and how it was going to impact our community. So the one thing I know about leading this campus is that we have no way of knowing what challenges we'll face in the next year. However, what I'm really confident in is the skills, the relationships, and the abilities that Eva and I have built and developed on campus that will help us face any challenge that the Villanova community is presented with in the coming year, and also make sure that student voices, concerns, and experiences are always put at the center of how the university is dealing with anything.
We see a successful year as being able to look back and see the campus climate change, and we want to be able to set a foundation for successful years to follow. We want to be able to also adapt to student concerns and ideas along the way, and we see a successful year in office as doing that as well. Hopefully, our successful year in office will end with a normal graduation out on the football field and being a normal school year somewhat as well.
Caroline and Eva. This question comes from Julia and Philip. They ask, while we strongly believe that following community first guidelines is imperative to our community, some students feel there is an evident nervous culture on campus because students are able to anonymously report guideline violations. There has been criticism that your administration has aided in this campus disunity. What measures can you implement to restore the trust and unity on campus?
So off the top, I think that's a great question, because I think we can all acknowledge that it has been very difficult, despite everything the university's done. It's been very difficult to attend college during a pandemic. I don't think anyone disagrees with that reality. I know that's the student experience Eva and I have had, and I know that students have really struggled this year in all aspects of their experience. To me, with Community First, it's been always and has always been centered about finding a balance. So yes, we need to hold each other accountable, but at the same time, we need to care for each other. I think that we need to push each other just as much as we're showing up for each other. I think that I'm very proud of the work that myself, Eva, and other leaders of student government have done in putting Community First and in taking what the university's given us and going off of that. I think that although we've all had to make sacrifices, we also all are lucky to be here, and the fact that we've been able to keep the school open for 2 semesters, something a lot of colleges have struggled to do, shows that although these measures are difficult and ask a lot of students, they're also working and are important.
I think it's also important to keep in mind that we're looking forward to hopefully having a somewhat normal year next year, but that keeping our campus safe and healthy is a #1 priority always.
So, Julia and Phil. This question comes from Caroline and Eva. They ask, Julia, your experience in SGA has been as the social media chair in public relations, and Phil, SGA would be a new undertaking for you. Given this context, what is your plan to build relationships with administrators you haven't worked with before to do projects that are time sensitive. Be as specific and quantifiable as possible.
While we definitely understand that we might not have as much experience as the other ticket, we do believe that this is an asset to us. We think that everybody has to start somewhere within student government. I've definitely learned a lot in the past year, and we acknowledge that there's still so much more for us to learn, and we are willing to put in that work. We would start immediately when our position became possible to us to start making these connections, and we would definitely not do this alone. As student body president and vice president, we're representing the entire student body, not just student government, but we would definitely lean on those who are more experienced than us to gather more information and help them guide us in the right direction, because this is not just something that would be for Phil and I, it is for the entire student body.
And I think just in general, although SGA is a great resource to make leadership connections, that doesn't take away from Julie and I's ability to care about this community. I think at its core, that's all that matters. We have the resolve to improve every single student's lives on this campus, and we're honestly involved in a lot of other organizations, so that can be a huge advantage for us as well, as we can make those connections between SGA and those other organizations. And like we said again, like making Villanova one community is very important to us. So making new connections is also important, but using those other connections that we do have, I feel like it's going to make SGA even a more formidable organization in order to make change on this campus.
You can now conclude with your closing statement.
Regardless of the outcome of this election, we just want to thank each and every single one of you for really taking the time to care and to improve our community in general. We're obviously fighting for you guys, and it means a lot that you guys want to be heard. And we also want to thank the SGA. We know that COVID presents a unique challenge in setting up an election, but you guys have done a great job in helping us to just bring opportunity to new voices on this campus.
We've already learned so much, and as Phil said, regardless of the outcome, we still want to be really involved, and we still want to fight for everything that we were planning to fight for. This has already been such a great experience, and we're so thankful for everyone's support. We just want to stress we're here for everyone, and throughout the next week and a half or so, we're open to all suggestions, questions, ideas that you guys might have, and not just during this campaign period, but for the rest of our Villanova careers. We're both sophomores, so we think that if we were to be elected, we would be able to initiate and watch this change grow over the next 2 years.
Now that you've heard us speak, we're not able and going to sit here and promise things that we are not able to do. We have the experience and knowledge to know what we can promise and not promise the student body. What we can promise is that we will always listen to, advocate, and stand up for every member of the Villanova community.
Over the past semester and the past 2 semesters, we have watched this community come together to accomplish things that many of us didn't even think were possible last August. I know when I showed up for school in August and showed up on campus, I was unsure of how this was all going to work out, but I have seen our community members put community first every single day and show up for each other every single day. And I know that if we apply that commitment to each other to other areas of our campus and other things that need attention, there's really no limit on what the Villanova community can accomplish.
Thank you guys so much for watching this year's presidential debates.
We want to remind you that voting opens on Thursday, March 18th at 8 a.m. and closes on Friday, March 19th at 4 p.m.
Thanks, and go Cats.